Hello and welcome back to the Dugout podcast. This is episode number 59, and today I'm joined by my co host Ethan Barlow as we will go through all the SPFL teams' transfer windows, and we're going to be making a little tier list today. We don't have the tier list in front of us, but it will be in the order of S, A, B, C, D, and we'll overlay it on screen for you guys at the end. So we're going to be going through those transfers, and then towards the end of the video, we're going to be going over the weekend's action. But obviously, the big story is deadline day was yesterday. The window has slammed shut, and it was an exciting window for a lot of teams, Ethan.
Yeah, it was. A lot of interesting signings coming into the Scottish Premiership, a lot of big outgoings as well. Some clubs got some really good deals done on the last day in the final minutes. Aberdeen, I'm looking at especially, and some clubs didn't, like Celtic. So, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how all the teams stack up and really get to refresh ourselves looking at their incomings and outgoings. And yeah, obviously not the most entertaining weekend of Scottish Premiership action, but yeah, we'll obviously we'll touch on the games and the two derbies as well.
Yeah, and tomorrow we will be uploading a Scotland sort of centric video. The international breaks coming up. I will be appearing on the Scottish Football Zone on Friday night for before and after the Denmark game. So tune into that. Unfortunately, Ethan can't make that one. I think he's got work. So yeah, we were both on the transfer show last night as well. I wouldn't go back and watch that because by that point my brain had turned to mush and I was just waffling. Now, not that I don't normally just waffle, but I feel like I was waffling more than usual. There was a full minute, really uncomfortable minute and a half where I was just talking and no one was jumping in.
Yeah, there wasn't really much to talk about in all fairness when it came to that late in the window. It was just kind of teams finalising the paper talks that we had seen. And yeah, there wasn't that much interesting things. As I said, Aberdeen, two really big signings, which we'll get onto right at the death of the window. Hibs missed out on their man, Lyndon Dykes. St Mirren signed a striker. Celtic finally got their winger, but still don't have their striker role. We'll get onto that and the talking points when we get to Celtic.
Yeah. So, do you want to start from the current table, bottom to top?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so we're starting with Aberdeen, currently bottom of the Scottish Premiership. No wins from their opening three games. Obviously, they've got a game in hand because they postponed one of their matches to try and get through in Europe, which they failed to do as well, unfortunately for them. But yeah, an interesting window for Aberdeen. I'll just, I think I've got it pulled up here, so I'll just speed run all the players that have come through, and then a little rundown of maybe how they've been so far, or what's happened to them, that sort of thing. Obviously, there's a couple that are in recently and haven't really made an impact yet. So Emmanuel Giamfi is injured, I believe. He got injured almost instantly, set to return at the end of September. Cassini Yenge has been rubbish since he's come in. Nicholas Milanovic has showed promise. Nicholas Suman or Summon, I don't know how you say it. I don't know much about him. I don't. So yeah, he's come in from Cove Rangers, so obviously he's not going to be the starting goalkeeper. Kjartan Mark Kjartansson uh, has yet to make an appearance for Aberdeen. It looks like Adil Awichi on loan from Sunderland. That's an interesting signing and definitely one of the ones you think, wow, these guys are serious this summer. Alfie Dorrington on loan from Tottenham Hotspur, Kenan Bilalovic, Marco Lazetic. Uh, he made his debut at the weekend. He's still really to make an impact. Mitchell Frame, of course, a Celtic youngster, now Aberdeen player. That could be an interesting one. And then the two yesterday on deadline day was Jasper Karlsson on loan from Bologna and Kevin Nisbet signs for signs for Aberdeen on a 3 year deal. It's saying here on FotMob that the fee was apparently 2.2 million, but I heard that they paid 300 grand for them.
Yeah,
So
not 2.2 million.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, Aberdeen they brought in some good players. They seem to have addressed the problems they had from last season, the areas that, and I know the performances haven't been there yet, but I feel like they were missing a Kevin Nisbet, someone that's really you can rely on. I feel for goals in the Scottish Premiership, obviously from his time at Hibs and his loan campaign last year with Aberdeen, where he picked up Players Player of the Season. So shows how well he was rated by his peers last campaign, and if he can turn that in again, then he'll be a big player for Jimmy Tulane. And Jimmy Tulane really needs someone at the moment because I imagine, sorry, he's under massive pressure from the Aberdeen faithful with how the season's begun. And looking at the outgoings, there's been a few key players. Obviously, Jamie McGrath goes to Hibs. Ross Doohan, kind of backup goalkeeper, played a big part last season with Mitov's injury, goes to Celtic. Papi Gay to Turkey. Yeah, he started last season really well, kind of fell away a bit. Shaden Morris, the player of the year to Luton Town. That was a deadline day move as well. There's a few other players that have kind of left, but not too many that were big successes at Aberdeen. Maybe Jack McKenzie, who went to Plymouth, but
yeah,
as a whole, I think they've replaced those players
I thought
pretty
Ruben
well.
was all right in his time.
Who was it?
Slobodan Rubezic, I thought he was okay.
Yeah, he was okay. He was a bit of a hit or miss. There was some times he was good, sometimes he was quite reckless to describe it in one word. But no, he definitely was a player that could have been used to Aberdeen, but I think he got homesick in the end or something along those lines and wanted to go back to, sort of the area where he's from. So
Mm.
that's fair enough. And Aberdeen have obviously got Alfie Dorrington back as you touched on. That's a really good loan signing for the season. Adil which is a really exciting one, and we've seen glimmers of the player that he possibly was and could be. Still young and a lot to prove on loan from Sunderland. Carlson's a really exciting one, and you just wonder how Aberdeen even get a player like that from Bologna on loan. I know his career hasn't really panned out as maybe he would have hoped for since moving to Italy from AZ Alkmaar, but still a ridiculous achievement to get him. Obviously, Jimmy Tilly must have an impact there with the Swedish link, but
Yeah,
I
his
really like Aberdeen and
statistics. You saw his statistics in his last sort of 3 years at Alkmaar before he moved are pretty damn good. He's a left winger. First one was 39 games, 12 goals, 9 assists. Second one was 51 games, 21 goals, 15 assists. And then his last season was 33 games, 13 goals, 8 assists. Since then, according to FotMob, he has not grabbed an assist in the years since leaving AZ Alkmaar and only has 2 goals. He's not made a lot of appearances either, so it hasn't panned out for him. But maybe coming to Scotland, similar quality, or maybe even a little bit less than the Eredivisie, could really kick on.
yeah, definitely. And he needs a restart in his career. He should be hitting the prime years at 27, and Aberdeen will be hoping to benefit off that. And if I had to rate everything, their outgoings, their incomings, I would say maybe not the best. I think we reserve maybe S and D for one club as the standout best and worst, but I would probably stick Aberdeen in at A at the moment. Would you agree?
And these you know the way we put these teams are subject to change throughout the video. We can shift it around a little bit if as the discussion goes on. But I'd agree with that right now. I think Aberdeen definitely in the A tier going in.
Before yesterday, sorry, just the last thing, before yesterday's signings, they were probably sitting in B, but the fact they've got that goal scorer that they need and a real flair player on the wing to really take them to the next level, you could say. And I mean, obviously they've started the season really poorly, but they're still it's a massive turnover they've had of players. Not the biggest in the league by any stretch, but yeah, Jimmy Tilleen and Aberdeen faithful will be hoping that they can turn it around and get back into those European places where they fans feel they belong.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, moving on to 11th place, we will go to Dundee, and these are their incomings: Dre Wright, um, Paul Digby, Emil Aqua. I've never seen this before. This must be one that went under the radar for me. Plamen Galabov, um, Tony Yogain, Ashley Hay, Callum Jones, Joe Wesley, Jan Danda, Cameron Congreve, and Ethan Hamilton were the incomings for Dundee. However, I think the outgoings outweigh it just slightly. Um, Lyle Cameron to Rangers, Jordan McGee went to Motherwell, Josh Mulligan's gone to Hibs, Scott Tiffany has gone to Kilmarnock, Mo Silla has gone to Livingston, Joe Shaughnessy to the Newcastle Jets, and Portales and Scott Fraser are still free agents. So yeah, not not a great window for Dundee. They've lost a lot of their key players and strengthened other clubs in the SPFL that they perhaps were hoping to maybe be competing with. And they've brought in a lot of youngsters and a lot of sort of older kind of guys like Paul Digby and Dre Wright, and they brought in a few guys from Brighton. Sorry, not Brighton, Brentford. Obviously, Stephen Presley with that connection there. Um, Jan Danda's a good signing, I think. Hopefully, he can kick on and restart his career. But Ethan, it's not a great window for Dundee.
No, not at all. And I think we are looking at the bottom of the tier list possibly for Dundee because, as you said, the amount of players that left, contracts were up or they got decent fees for. They've not brought in enough numbers. I would argue that I know we've not seen probably a fair enough amount of the players to suggest they've brought in enough quality. But looking at the signings, there's no one that really excites me. Dre Wright, decent signing, proven at Scottish Premiership level, versatile player. Jan Danda, didn't see the best of him at Hearts, but obviously was a really good player at Ross County. Then the other ones, players from England that haven't really done much in their careers. Most of them, I think Ethan Hamilton and Callum Jones a little bit, and Paul Digby as well, a little bit more experience than the other ones. A few Brentford players that obviously Stephen Presley knows from working there before he came to Dundee. But yeah, he touched on it a few weeks ago and said they needed six new players in. They've only brought in four since then, so that probably says where they've been and that they've not brought in enough to support the manager. And yeah, I think it is going to be a real tough season for Dundee. They had that glimmer of hope when they got the point at Ibrox and then point against Kilmarnock, but the two performances either side of them against Hibs and Dundee United have been terrible. And yeah, I think they're still favourites in my eyes to finish rock bottom. And the signing and recruitment has been one of the main sort of contributors to that opinion.
Yeah, and they failed to bring in, which might have bumped them up a little bit. They failed to bring in Ryan Jack the other day. That deal had been rumoured for a few days and it apparently collapsed yesterday. That might have bumped them up slightly, added a bit of real experience to their squad and quality. I'm not so sure how he's been doing out in Turkey, but I can't imagine he's fallen off a cliff. Yeah, that it's not great. I think for now, I'll just to be safe, I would want to stick them in C, but I think towards the end of the tier list, we'll bump them down. But I just to be safe for now.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I'm just looking at how many players that have lost. I think 14 possibly here. that have left, and how many is that they brought in? 11 they brought in. So yeah, not the biggest sort of difference, but the players that they've lost are quality, and maybe the players that have come in have yet to prove themselves, and we need to give them the chance to show that maybe they are Premiership level. But I just don't have a lot of confidence in the signings, and yeah, C tier, so second bottom at the moment for Dundee, and they'll be quite happy with that if they can finish there in the actual Scottish Premiership season. I believe with how it's going at the moment.
Aye. Okay, moving on to current 10th place position, we have the Buddies, St Mirren, starting off with the incomings. They managed to bring in Roland Adowa on a permanent deal, Richard King, um, Ryan Mullen, Jaden Richardson, Liam Donnelly, Tanmisi Sobowale, Jalmaro Calvin, Killian Phillips, really good bit of business there. Shamal George, so far looking like a good bit of business. Miguel Freckleton, also so far looking like a good bit of business. Malik Dykesdale, still yet to sort of prove himself. Kiana Bacchus, really good signing. And last but not least, Dan Elendulu. He doesn't look great. I've had to look at his goal record, and it's pretty atrocious in his whole career for a striker. So not great on that front. But the rest of the incomings have been really good. Just before we speak about that, I'll just go through some of the outgoings. Um, Caelan Boyd Muntz goes to Wickham. Greg Kelty went to Kilmarnock. Luke Kenny to Arbroath. Dennis Adeniran to Barnet. Elvis Bomono goes to IBV Vestmannier. I'll go for that. Callum Penman, Queen of the South. Peter Rominski to Glen Torren. James Scott to Ross County, Alex Iacoviti to Ross County, and our last outgoing, which I thought was a wee bit strange, but Ocean Smith goes to Partick Thistle on a season-long loan.
Yeah,
But
I think I
I feel
don't
like
know if you
St Mirren have had
mentioned it.
quite a good window.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at now. I don't know if you said it. Richard Taylor to Bolton was one of the big misses.
Oh yeah, I missed that one.
Um, but yeah, on the whole, they've not lost too many players. I'm looking at the ones that they've sort of lost the key players. Zach Heyman obviously went back to Middlesbrough when his loan was finished, and Greg Kelty to Kilmarnock, although he didn't have the best season, you could say, at St Mirren. Richard Taylor's one that's a big miss. Caelan Boyd Muntz as well. But they've not lost too many key players, and they've brought some really good players in. You look at Shamal George, who's started the season really well, obviously on loan from Wickham. As you said, Freckleton's looked good, got the goal yesterday. Sobowale's looked pretty decent. Then they get Keanu Bacchus back, and we obviously know how good he was in his first stint in Paisley. Killian Phillips, I think, is obviously the highlight. I think he came off injured yesterday, so hopefully that's not too serious one for him. Even the likes of Richard King and Jaden Richardson have looked pretty decent. So yeah, really good window from Stephen Robinson, and he seems to always get his recruitment right. And all the players have come in and started really well. And I know on the face of it they look like they're down in 10th place, and yes they are, but they've had quite a difficult start to the season fixture wise. In the first 4 games they've already played Rangers, Celtic, and Hibs, the top three from last season. So you would imagine they rise up the table pretty soon, and Robinson's recruitment will be probably a main boost for them if they were to, and I think they will, because that's a good window, and I'm not sure if they're quite. They probably are.
I was thinking I'd put them in A.
Yeah, I put them in A as well. I was thinking about when I first thought of St Mirren, I was thinking B, but just looking at it on paper, I think A is probably the fair destination for them.
Definitely. Ryan will be happy with that one. Moving on to Livingston, currently in ninth position. we're talking about Dundee biting your hand off for 11th. I think Livingston would bite your hand off for ninth. So they have signed quite a few, quite a few players this summer. So let's see. They managed to get back Stevie May, signed Conor McLennan, Graham Carey, Cameron Kerr, Shane Blaney, Macaulay Tate, Mohamed Salah, as mentioned earlier, Adam Montgomery, Aidan Denham, Jeremy Bocala, Junior Robinson, Mamadou Soho. I feel like I'm missing a few. I don't know if FotMob have not got.
I've got 17 here. I'll just go through them. I don't know if you've said any of them. This is on Transfermarkt. Shane Blaney, Conor McLaren, Zach Rudden, Cammy Kerr, Stevie May, Mo Salah, Jeremy
Zach
McKeer.
Rudden's gone to Dunfermline.
Oh yeah, so he has.
Sign him and then
Yeah, that's what it says here. He signed him from Queen's Park. I think I remember it right at the start of the window. They brought him on at free.
that's really odd. Is he on loan
Yeah.
at Dunfermline?
Let me see. It'll probably tell me here. Oh no, actually, it doesn't tell me here. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'd imagine so. I'm not sure though. Graham
Because
Carey,
played,
Brooklyn.
he played in the Premiership.
What is it?
He played in the Premiership.
Did he? Brooklyn Cambongolo, I think it is. Lewis Latona from Hamilton, I believe they loaned him back out. Yeah, to East Fife. Yannick Vanna, Aidan Denholm, Sissoko, Montgomery, Macaulay Tate back on loan from Hearts, Junior Robinson, Tato, who has been loaned out. Uh, Possibly it for their incomings, but quite a lot. For outgoings, notable ones, Jamie Brandon, obviously the captains, went to Kelly. Um,
Zach
I
Rudden.
look, oh yeah, is that Rudden to Dunfermline? Yeah, no, that's a permanent transfer by the looks of it. Uh, Bit of a strange one.
They've just done the classic FIFA career mode, get a free agent and chuck him for some cash quick.
Yeah, they haven't lost too many key players, I would argue. Obviously, I won't be too clued up on Livingston in the Championship as I don't watch them as maybe I would as much as I would in the Premiership. But there's no players I'm looking at there and going were key players in
Stephen
their
Kelly.
playoff campaign to get promoted,
Well,
apart from Jamie Brandon. So
not in the playoff campaign, but Stephen Kelly's quite good.
yeah, um,
He went to Orange County for on a free, which is quite strange.
well, that's not even on my thing. So yeah, but that is a
What are
that
you
is a miss.
what are you using? Transfermarkt?
Yeah.
Famously unreliable.
Well, I would say it's more reliable than the site that said that Kevin Nisbet signed for Aberdeen for 2 million. No, but I think looking at it now, Livingston they've brought in a lot of players, a lot of players. I think 17 in total, possibly, which is a lot. They've
I'm
not lost too many key players. Obviously, there's a captain in Jamie Brandon who goes to
saying
Premiership opposition,
I would
but
I would say low B, high C.
yeah. I would say B. I would say it's middle of the pack. I'm not going to say it's an A tier, but I'm also not going to say it's C. I'd say it's middle. They've done what they needed to do, I think, and the way they've started the season, it could all go downhill when they get relegated very easily. I think we all on this podcast had them in 11th place, quite possibly. But yeah, I do think it's been a decent window. They've got a lot of bodies in, some quality on loan from some of the clubs in the higher ends of the Premiership and some Scottish Premiership experience. Graham Carey, one that jumps out. Stevie May as well. Mo Salah, I think it's really good signings. We touched on when that actually happened. So yeah, I'd say B tier for Livingston. Not bad, not great, but a decent window that puts them in a good place heading into the season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think they have shown they've got a bit about them as well, and in the games that they played, maybe except from Celtic, you know you can never expect much with teams going to Parkhead. So aye, that would that is, I think it is a good window for them, and hopefully, like you said, Ethan, they can sort of push past that kind of relegation kind of zone. Because I just like mixing it up in the Premiership. I'd be pleased if like both the promoted sides stayed up and then two other ones went down, and then we got some like Dunfermline and Wraith Rovers or something like, you know what I mean? Just mix it up and have some or Dunfermline, Park Thistle, Wraith Rover, whoever. Just I just like when we get some fresh teams in the division. Rangers might be down there as well. They might make a return to the Championship if they don't get their act together, and that would certainly be terrible if Rangers ended up the Championship, as they've. Well, we'll get on to it. I think it's the next after the next team, but uh, if they ended up in the Championship after spending 8 million on a striker, they could be in real trouble. But anyway, I think we're going to take a small break. We'll be back with Falkirk and then the rest of the sides. Moving on to Falkirk's transfer window, and other than a late flurry, Ethan, it wasn't looking too good, but they've managed to bring some new players in. I'm just checking to see, just pulling it up. Sorry, a little bit unprepared here. There we go. So, right at the beginning, they managed to bring in Lewis Nielsen and Henry Cartwright. And then in the last 4 or 5 days or so, they've brought in 4 loan signings. Kyrell Wilson, who actually scored on his debut for Falkirk against Aberdeen at the weekend. Trey Samuel Ogunsui, Ethan Williams, and Philip Lissa.
Yeah, I think we were saying earlier in the window at the point Falkirk had only brought in 4 players, and I think that was Scott Bain, Brian Graham, Lewis Nielsen, and Henry Cartwright that they needed more in. Since then, they've brought in 4 loan players from down south. Whether the players will come in and have enough to help the squad is we're still to find out. Brian Graham hasn't really started the season all that well, and maybe not had the impact that John McGlynn would have liked. Scott Bain started in goals. He's had a few decent performances. Kept a clean sheet at Pittodrie yesterday, obviously. We've made some decent saves at Celtic Park the other week as well. They've not lost any key players, Falkirk, which is to be noted. But yeah, I don't know if they've brought enough in to really deal with being promoted to the Scottish Premiership and competing in that across the season to avoid relegation. So I'm looking at low B
I
into
think
C.
they're solid C.
You think so?
Yeah, I just think even their signings, their permanent signings, not the best. Scott Bain's looked a bit ropey, I think, so far. Brian
He's
Graham.
been okay. He's been
What?
okay. He did start the season poorly, but I think he's been okay.
He's let in 2 easy goals at the near post.
Yeah, that was at the start of the season.
They
But
were
we're on from
only
that
4
now.
games in.
Well, no, they've played 5 because they played in the League Cup as
Yeah,
well.
what was the score in that game?
No, but he was good in that game. I watched it and he was good. He made some good saves. He wasn't at fault for any of the goals, and
No, so anyway, Scott Bain's been a bit ropey. Brian Graham's 140. I've not seen much of Cartwright or Nielsen. Obviously, big for a debut goal at the weekend. But I think solid C for Falkirk.
fair enough. I'll agree with you there. I was willing to budge on B just based off the fact they haven't lost any key players, but I do think they've not strengthened enough for the jump to the Scottish Premiership, and they may struggle off the back of it. So, yeah, C's fair for them.
Okay, so moving on to seventh place. We have Rangers, and they have had a busy window. We'll start with the incomings. Lyle Cameron on a free transfer, Max Aarons on loan, Joe Rothwell in as well, Emmanuel Fernandez, Telo Asgard, Nasir Giga, Diede Gassama. Oscar Cortez obviously came in permanently and has gone out on loan to Sporting Gijón. Mikey Moore on loan from Tottenham, Oliver Antman in on a permanent, Jaden Magoma on loan from Brentford, Bojan Miovski in on a permanent deal, as was Yusuf Chermiti for the highest fee since Andre Flo for Rangers, and Derek Cornelius in from Marseille on a loan with an option to buy. Now let's have a look at the outgoings. Leon Balgan went to Aris Limassol as a free agent. Adam Devine is currently a free agent. Robin Proper to FC20. Ross McCausland to Aris Limassol on loan. Robbie Fraser permanently to Dunfermline. Jeffrey to Palmeiras. Jose Cifuentes to Toronto. Ben Davies on loan to Oxford United, running down the last year of his contract. Ridvan Yilmaz to Besiktas. Cole McKinnon to Airdrie. Hamza Agaman to Lille for, I think it was around £10.4 million. Oscar Cortez, as mentioned, on loan to Sporting Gijón. And Cyril Dessers to Panathinaikos. So, yeah. So far, it's not looked good for Rangers. A lot of the signings haven't looked. I'll just go through. Lyle Cameron's looked decent. Aaron's dud. Rothwell dud. Fernandez not seen enough. Asgard so far hasn't been good. Giga is a bomb scare. Gassama top player. Mikey Moore little moments, but I don't think we've seen enough of him yet. Oliver Ackman has been rubbish since that amazing first game. Jaden Magoma's looked solid. Miovski still not seen enough, and obviously Chermiti and Cornelius haven't played yet.
Yeah, there has been a big turnover at Rangers this season, obviously with the new management of Russell Martin and then the ownership of the 49ers consortium. They've lost a lot of key players, as you mentioned. The likes of Jeff, they played a lot of games last season, but I think Rangers were quite happy to see him go for the money they got. Same with Ridvan Yilmaz, Cyril Dessers and Hamza Agaman will be big misses, you would imagine. And then you've got the likes of Václav Cherny, who obviously goes back to Wolfsburg, and I believe he signed for. Did you see who he signed for? He signed for someone. I can't remember who it was, but he did sign for.
I didn't
He
see
did sign for. Actually, let me see. Oh no, it doesn't tell me on here, but he did sign for another team.
Wolfsburg, it looks like.
Um, let's see. Let me find out. I'll need that one away, mate. If I don't find out who he signed for.
Uh,
Besiktas. Yeah, I thought it was Besiktas, but yeah. So he goes to Besiktas, and yeah, but they have brought in a lot of players and spent a lot of money on, especially players like Yusuf Chermiti, as you mentioned, and yeah, I think it's been okay for Rangers. Been some signings that have looked promising, some less so. Obviously, lost a lot of key players, so. Um, I don't think it's. I'm not going to say it's a bad window. I don't think it's a great window. I'm sitting in the middle at the moment on B really.
yeah,
Um,
I'd probably agree. I think if maybe the likes of Asgard, Chermiti, Cornelius, Ant Man, and that, if they eventually come good, you could maybe bump them towards an A. But current state, I'd say a B.
yeah, and it's the three your biggest Rangers' biggest attacking threats from last season. Igaman, Dessers, and Cherny have all obviously not part of the squad anymore. So it's important that the goals get replaced. And obviously almost a completely new backline this season as well. On obviously only one natural left back in the first 11, so that was one Rangers probably would have wanted to get in before the deadline shut. They obviously didn't. So Jayden Nagoma's the only natural left back. So yeah, I don't think it's been a terrible window by Rangers, but I don't think based off what we've seen so far, it's been an excellent window. So I'll say B, just middle of the road.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Though there's a couple of left backs that are cutting about in the free agents list. Sergei Regulon is currently a free agent. Maybe Russell Martin
Okay.
be able to entice him to Rangers. Jamal Lewis is a free agent as well. Just looking. See, is there any others? Nobody of note. But yeah, maybe they could get. Oh, Diego Laxalt's a free agent. Bring him in the door. No, but yeah, mate, I don't think they are going to go for anyone else. Oh, Juan Bernat. That's a blast for the past. Um, what's he been doing with himself? Has he been? Where did he go after PSG?
I think he might have went to Asia or something. I have a feeling, but I'm not too sure.
It says Villarreal and then Getafe and then free agent.
No, not right. Fair enough.
Um, so yeah, but I know Rangers. I think right now solid B. Oh, Tommy is a free agent. Get him in, put him at left back.
Possibly.
No, but I think we'll move on from Rangers now and go to sixth place, Motherwell. And see, before I go over all the signings and that, I think I'm just going to come out and say it. I think they're my S tier for
Oh,
the transfer window.
shout, big shout.
Yeah, so I'll just go through them now. Uh, Lucas Fadinger, Jordan McGee, Elliot Watt, Ishil Sasule, of course. Unfortunately, he was injured. He tore his quad and he's been sent back to West Brom for rehabilitation. However, he could rejoin the squad when he's fit. Elijah Just, or Eli Just as he's being called, he looks brilliant, as does Emmanuel Longello, Ibrahim Saeed, Detlef Osong, Callum Hendry, Reagan Charles Cook, Oscar Priestman, and finally yesterday was Stephen Welsh. And I think this is an S tier window.
Yeah, quite possibly. There is another team that I've got in mind, but looking at what Motherwell have got for what they got rid of, Lennon Miller, a really good fee for him for what was left on his deal. They've not really reinvested that into the squad too much because I think they had brought in a lot of the players already. But brilliant business for the money they got for him. Gives them a lot of luxury really in the club to do stuff that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And but the recruitment's been excellent so far. The players have come in and made a real impact under what James Velasquez is trying to do. And I know they haven't got a win yet, as we'll touch on when we touch on the weekend's action. But they've looked really good, and the signings have as well. So yeah, it's hard. It's possibly hard to argue with that. I'm looking at the players that they've maybe lost, the key players apart from Lennon Miller, Dan Casey, Steve Seddon played quite a few games last season. Um, but apart from that, not too many, unless I'm missing anyone. Marvin Coletta was decent in parts of last season. He goes back to Wolves after his loan. Ellery Balcombe goes back to Brentford. Um, but yeah, not too many key players they've lost either, obviously, apart from Lennon Miller, but they get a good fee for him and he was always going to leave. So yeah,
I saw the Motherwell fans were wanting to bring Moses Abie back, um, despite his poor record. Uh,
yeah. I thought. he was one though that he looked when he came on, he like made an impact without scoring, if you know what I mean. He kind of sort of put himself about, and he was always sort of doing something.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'd agree with that. He always had something in the locker, but yeah, I think they've recruited really well, and apart from Lennon Miller, they've avoided losing crucial sort of first team players. And yeah, I'm stuck. I think I'm whacking them right in the S tier. Okay, now so moving on to Kilmarnock, currently in fifth place, and their window's been all right. I think. Let's just go through it, refresh our memories. So Jamie Brandon, Marcus Dackers, George Stanger, Jack Thompson, Scott Tiffany, Greg Kiltie, Maximilian Striek, Tom Lowry, Denario Daniels, Eddie Beach, Dominic Thompson, Zach Williams, and James Brown. In terms of their outgoings, Kyle Vassell lost as a free agent. Kieran O'Hara is currently a free agent. Corey Ndabag went to Lecce, and Robin McCrory to Esbjerg. So I, I think Kilmarnock's window's been pretty solid.
Yeah, I would agree. Good, they got decent fees for Corey and Daba, and well, I think they got like a development fee for possibly for Bobby Wales. Then they lost a lot of players. Contracts ran out, like Danny Armstrong, Fraser Murray, Joe Wright, Kyle Vassell, as I think you touched on. But they've brought in some good players. Sriek's a good signing in goals. They need a new goalkeeper. Daniels and Dackers looks like a pretty frightening partnership to go up against with their presence, and they've brought goals to that side as well. They bring Jamie Brandon in, who's got Premiership experience before. Obviously, that leadership as well with captain and Livingston. So yeah, I think it's been a decent window overall for Stuart Kettlewell at Kelly, and yeah, I would have them maybe upper B tier possibly.
I was maybe going to give them to lower A.
Yeah, I think what the tier list is a bit one sided, so I'm trying to weigh it down. But probably, in fairness, it probably is an A window. So yeah, okay, we'll go with A then because I'm quite happy to give them A. I was just trying to balance the teams out a bit.
Okay. Moving on to fourth place, Dundee United. And they've certainly signed a lot. They lost a lot. I think my initial kind of thoughts for them is C.
C,
Yeah.
it's quite low.
I just think it's been really scattergun and really kind of, you know, obviously they're panicking because they had to bring in a lot of players. Um,
Yeah,
and
but a lot of the players they brought in have looked good.
mm, I could maybe pick out three that I think have looked three or four. I think I've looked really good so far. Um, Sapsford, Kamara, um, Dolcek, and Waters, I would say, are the four that have looked good.
None of the defenders
Nah,
kept clean sheet of the weekend.
for like the first time ever.
Yeah, but they're fourth. They've went through European football as a distraction in the league. They're still fourth in the league, and I think they're only going to get better from here out and domestically anyway. So I think the proof is possibly in the pudding as to where they sit in the league. And I know it's very early, and there's very little points between them and even 11th place Dundee, but to come through the European struggles, the European hangovers, and be in fourth and have it going to get easier domestically because they don't have the games on Thursdays, then I think the signings have been pretty decent. They've obviously got Lucas Stevenson back as well, which I think is remarkable that they've managed to get him back because he was playing in the Liverpool first team for pre-season, and they managed to get him back. I think Bert Esselink, the central defenders, look pretty good as well on top of the players you said. Obviously, they've lost a lot of players. I'll just try to look through to see the sort of key ones. They lost Sam Dalby, obviously, went back to Wrexham after his loan, and who else? Jack Walton. They didn't get back, and I think about what other players. That seems the only two main ones that I'm seeing here, but obviously there is other ones. But they brought in a lot of players, a lot of unknowns, a scattergun approach, you'd possibly be fair to say. But I don't think it's as bad as C. I would go B for Dundee United. I think we'll see over the course of the season how well it pans out. It's difficult to tell because we don't know much about really any of the players apart from Lucas Stevenson and then what we've seen from them so far. So yeah, I'm gonna say B.
Oh,
For their window so far.
okay.
Well, their window's done, but how the players have played in the season so far.
Yeah. Moving on
You
to sorry, what?
happy to budge with B. Happy to budge to
Yeah,
B.
I'll be fine. I'll be fine with that. Happy with that. Moving on to
Yeah.
Hibs. They have actually announced a signing today. Dan Barlaser um, joins Hibs on a season-long loan from Middlesbrough, an experienced EFL midfielder. So that's another good one to add to their window so far. And Hibs have had a top window, I think. Just looking at it, Jamie McGrath, Ralph Salinger, still yet to see much from him. Josh Mulligan, Thibault Clige, obviously breaking their transfer record. Grant Hanley, Miguel Chaiwa has looked really good, and now Dan Barlaser as well. And I think they've done well. They haven't really lost anyone of note either, unless I'm forgetting
Yeah,
it.
not really. Well, Triantis obviously went back to Sunderland,
Yeah,
but that was one that it was always going to be difficult to get him back. They've pocketed nearly €2 million for Dylan Venti and Lewis Miller, which I think is excellent business for those two players to help them fund their transfer window and obviously break their record signing with Thibault Clige, who, when given the chance, has looked pretty decent, I think, from what I've seen. It's going to be difficult to break into that starting lineup
are
when
we,
you've got Kieran Bowie and
should we take into account as well they've held on to most of their key players, so
yeah.
that's part of their window as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely, because Kieran Bowie could have maybe made a late move somewhere with how he started the season, how much interest is probably picking up
A
in
certain club
Scotland and
a certain
across.
club might try to panic buy him at the last
Yeah,
second.
yeah. Well, you don't know how much Hibs would have demanded for him, though. That and they would have been fair to demand quite a lot because how important he is to Hibs. But obviously they brought in some decent players. Grant Hanley gives you that bit of experience at the back and cover for the starting centre defenders. Josh Mulligan, Jamie McGrath, some of the best players across the league from last season. Chaiwa looked good in that game when he came off the bench against Lega Warsaw and got the goal. Thibault Clige as well. So yeah, I'm thinking A tier, not quite S. I think they maybe needed a few more bodies in to get to S, but I'm happy to go for A tier for the Hybees.
Okay, yeah, I'd agree with that. So moving on to Hearts, who are currently joint top of the Premiership, second on goal difference. So here are their incomings. Christian Del Borchevink, he's currently injured, but I don't think it was bad as first initially thought. Elton Kabangu coming back to Hearts. Ocean McKenty, Alexandros Kizridis, Claudio Braga, who's looked really good so far. Stuart Findlay, who's started the season in goal scoring form. Saba Kerjota, Thomas Magnuson, Pierre Landry-Cabore, their record transfer signing Agu for around £1.7 million, and Alexander Swallow, who is an experienced goalkeeper, played a lot of games, over 200 matches. He's been in the Bundesliga his whole career, basically. So a free agent signing there. I'd imagine he'd come in to start. In terms of their outgoings, they've sold Musa Drama, they've loaned out Jan Danda, loaned out Adam Forrester, sold Aidan Denham. George Grant left. Lewis Nielsen obviously away. James Penrice, I think they got a really good fee for him. Macaulay Tate on loan to Livingston. Yutaro Oda being sold. And yeah, other than that, I don't think they've lost many key players in their squad, I'd say. And they've had a really good window as well.
Yeah, I really like Hearts and what they've done in the window. Obviously, they lost their player of the season last season, James Penrice. They got a good fee for him to go to
Sorry,
the AEK
when I said they
Athens.
have
But
lost many key players, obviously other than James Penrice, but
yeah, no, I know what you meant. They've not lost the sort of core of the squad. Just the one. He's the notable one that jumps out the page. But they've brought in some really good players. Stuart Finlay, obviously a great signing. Ocean McEntee's looked really good. Alexandros Kiridis, or Kizaridis, sorry, was the difference at the weekend.
call
Alexander Swallow, as you said, a real what?
just call him Alex.
What did you say?
Said just call
Yeah.
him Alex.
Um, what?
Why is there such a delay on this? This is great podcasting.
I don't know.
And I think there
I heard what you said.
must be a delay.
I heard what you said. Alexander Swallow, as you said, real experience and a good goalkeeper that's obviously not had the best of times recently, but a great pickup. Elton Kabangu was good when he came on loan last season. Good to get him on a permanent. Claudio Braga's looked really good at the start of this season. Agu we've not seen much of, but a record fee, a big one at that, €2 million around. So yeah, I think it's been a really good window for Hearts, and yeah, I would possibly say at least A tier, possibly into S.
Yeah, see, just looking at this, it's making me want to bump Motherwell down to A and put Hearts into S.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd be happy to do that. I think Hearts was the one going into this video that I was thinking as the standout.
Okay. Well, Hearts are into S. Motherwell has been bumped down to A. Moving on to the current league leaders, Celtic, and yeah, I'll just read out the business that's been done, and then we can whack them in D. Uh, I don't think it's quite D tier stuff, but it has been a bit of a farcical window for.
Oh, I don't know. It might be D. It's close.
So Kieran Tierney, and on a free, Benjamin Nygren, from Norgeland, Callum Osmond, Ross Doohan, Hayato Inamura, Shin Yamada, Jamai Simpson Pusey, Michel Ange Balak-Wisha, Marcelo Sarachi, and Sebastian Tunekti. And in terms of their outgoings, let's scroll down and just there's a few kind of younger players that have left, so I'll just go through the more notable ones. I'd say Scott Bain to Falkirk, Greg Taylor to Pauk, Mike Nawrotsky to Hanover on loan, Gustav Lagerbielka sold to Braga. He will make his return to Parkhead in the Europa League. Nicholas Kuhn obviously sold to Como for a big fee. Lewis Palma on loan to Lech Poznan. Let's see. Daniel Cummings has went to West Ham on a free transfer. Adam Montgomery on loan to Livingston. Kwan being sold to Nantes, Marco Tellio finally being sold to Rapid Vienna, Mitchell Frame sold to Aberdeen, Adam Ida sold to Swansea, and Stephen Welsh loaned out to Motherwell. In terms of outgoings, I think it's fine, but based on, I think especially Adam Ida, based on what we saw happen yesterday, Ethan, it's it's not been a good window for Celtic at all. They have not got what they needed, I think, in the right areas. Obviously, they got Balak and Tunekte in over the past few days, wingers that they needed. But now they're in a situation where who would it even be? Shin Yamada, Johnny Kenny is your starting striker. I think Kelechi Iheanacho is currently a free agent. They were linked to him yesterday. Then Sevilla terminated his contract, so he might be coming to Parkhead. But even still, he's been rubbish for a while now. So it's kind of a stressful situation if you're a Celtic supporter.
Yeah, it's not the best window for Celtic, as I think we've touched on the whole duration of the summer. The key players that go, Nicholas Kuhn, they get a good fee for him. Adam Ida, you could argue they get a good fee for him as well. And then at left back, they lose Greg Taylor and Jeffrey Schlupp goes back to Crystal Palace and Malone. I would say that they're the sort of key big players that have left since last season. At left back, they've obviously brought in two, Kieran Tierney and
Actually,
his name's escaping me. Yes, Marcelo Sarachi. And the jury's still out on whether that'll be a better combination. I think we'll see in the coming months across the season. Obviously, they did bring in two wingers in the end, and Sebastian Tanecki and Mikael Ange-Balak-Wisha. We'll have to see if they can replace the productivity of Nicholas Kuhn, although both of them aren't right wingers. I think Daizen Maeda will be starting up top in the coming weeks. Obviously, Celtic will be at an international break to get Kelechi Iheanacho in the door. Whether he will be a starter, we'll see. But they obviously have to replace Adam Ida, which they didn't do in the window. And you could argue they didn't get a suitable replacement then. Neither did they get a suitable replacement for Kyogo or Nicholas Kuhn. So I would say it's been a poor window by Celtic, and I would put it in C.
yeah. See, just to play sort of a bit of devil's advocate on Kieran Tierney. Um, Obviously, you can see his quality, but would do you think having a left back that needs to be subbed after 60, 70 minutes every game is a more of a liability, and perhaps that outweighs his quality? Because you saw it even in the Rangers game at the weekend. Ethan, you highlighted it. One point when Gassama was running at him, he just tried to block him rather than stand him up.
Yeah, obviously it's a disadvantage, and I think Celtic would have been well aware that when they signed Kieran Tierney that he wasn't going to be in the fittest place to play out those minutes. But if Celtic have got a suitable replacement on the bench, which they haven't had until the weekend, until they brought Sarachi in, I don't think it's too big a problem, because I imagine if they play Kieran Tierney throughout the season, he will eventually get to that level of fitness. I remember Tom Rogic, when he was at Celtic, obviously a great player for them. He barely played 90 minutes, always off by the 60th minute. And look at the impact he had at Celtic. Of course, he came on and he came off the bench on that occasion to score one of the most memorable goals in the club's history. So yeah, I don't think it's a massive problem. Ideally, I think Greg Taylor stays, and he's another option that would be a brilliant option. Obviously, he wanted to go to Greece. He's not really had the minutes there that he would have liked so far. So possibly staying at Celtic was the best solution for all parties, but a disappointing window for Celtic and C, I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah, Celtic and C, I reckon we bumped Dundee down to Dundee. And here is our final tier list, and we're going to move on to the weekend's action. Moving on to the league action of the weekend. We usually spend quite a bit of time on this, but I feel like it's going to be a more streamlined version, so the podcast doesn't go off for ages. But there were 6 matches at the weekend and some interesting ones, starting with the Saturday games. Hearts went away to the Spaghetti Had. I'm always going to call it that, even when they're not sponsored by Tony Macaroni anymore. and they got the 2-1 victory.
Yeah, good win for Hearts and bit of a trend they've got going from coming from behind in the league. Obviously, they rescued a point at Tynecastle last week against Motherwell when they went 3-0 up. They came from behind at Tannadice to win 3-2. So, yeah, they're showing that they've got fight and that they've got spirit to get back into games. But I think Derek McInnes will want them to start a bit better. But they do get the job done in the end with a massive away support. I believe it was around 6,000 Hearts fans there on Saturday. So, a massive away turnout. And they get the win. And Livingston isn't always an easy place to go, as we know, on that surface. And Alexandros Kizridis, the Greek winger, was the difference in the second half. He came on at half time, set up the first goal, good cross for Claudio Braga, who got his third Premiership goal this season, six in all comps. And then Kizridis with a really nice finish right at the end in injury time to get some away end limbs as Hearts went back to the top of the table on 10 points for the meantime. And that's 3 goals and 3 assists in 7 games for him this season. Lewis Smith got the first half goal for Livingston. It was a nice finish for him from him. 2 goals for him already in the league after he scored that stunner against Falkirk. But yeah, a good performance by Hearts. Well, not the best performance by Hearts, but they get the job done. Not the worst by Livingston, and they'll still be confident they can pick up enough points across the course to stay in the league.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wait. Sorry. This isn't Scottish football related, but Grimsby fielded an ineligible player against Manchester United.
Yeah, I seen that. I did see that.
So does that mean United are still in the cup?
No, it doesn't.
So what does that mean then?
They get a fine.
Wow. Shocking. They cheated and they get away with it. But anyway, what were we talking about? Hearts and Livingston. Yeah, good. Just probably reiterating your points there, Ethan. Good result for Hearts. Livingston, it's unfortunate for them, but I feel like they've had a tough past couple of weeks. And I think they've shown they're perhaps capable of picking up results against the rest of the division. So yeah, it shouldn't be all doom and gloom for David Martindale.
Yeah, exactly that. And Hearts also, or Derek McInnes handed the debut to the record signing Agu, came off the bench. Maybe not the most pleasant place in the Scottish Premiership to make your debut at Livingston with that pitch, but obviously I didn't see how he performed. But I'm sure we'll see over the course of the next few weeks and months whether he is worth that €2 million that Hearts spent on him. A massive outlay for a player like that. And yeah, Hearts are looking good. It's not been all convincing with the performances, but good results to start the season apart from the League Cup exit to St Mirren. And they're putting a lot of pressure on Celtic, Rangers, and Hibs very early with the two Glasgow clubs certainly not pleasing their fans at the moment, as we'll get on to.
Yeah, definitely. And perhaps it's Tony Bloom was a bit more in the know than we all thought originally. Now moving on to the second game of the Saturday, and Motherwell drew 2 each with Kilmarnock at Fir Park. The story of Motherwell's season so far has been the best team in every single game they've played, but they've not managed to get that win.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's been, yeah, as you said, it's been the theme of James Bartholomew Motherwell under his reign. 4 games, 4 they probably should have won, but they're sitting there with 4 points. They've not lost. Maybe you could look at that as the positive. But yeah, again, they were in after conceding initially to Zero Daniels' opening goal, his fourth of the season. They got back into the game to Wanda Masmanise, got his sixth of the season, And then Emmanuel Longello, the left back stroke left wing back, obviously another summer signing. He's already got 3 goals in the league this season, 4 in all comps from left back, which is quite ridiculous going. His goal very similar actually to the one he scored on the opening day against Rangers, where he kind of hits it really nicely on the sort of half volley into the corner to give Motherwell the lead at that point after coming from behind against Kelly. But then Callum Ward, the goalkeeper, makes a mistake and drops the ball out of his hands, and George Stanger's in there to rescue a point for Kelly, who have also got 4 points from 4. So both teams not got a win yet in the Scottish Premiership, but have not lost. So a positive start, a decent return to Fir Park for Stuart Kettlewell, although I do believe he got a pretty frosty reception from the Motherwell fans after obviously leaving for exactly that reason, really. When he got some difficult abuse from certain sections of the Motherwell support, which was affecting his family and stuff like that. So, yeah, but it's nice to see that Stuart Kettlewell is obviously back in the Scottish Premiership, a good manager, and he started really well at Kilmarnock, as James Beff-Velasco has done at Motherwell, and 2 exciting seasons possibly ahead. We spoke about both of them having really solid windows, and they've started the season well without a defeat. Although I think Motherwell will believe they should have more points, but the league table is very tight in the main, apart from Hearts and Celtic, who are the sort of runaway teams at the moment. So definitely space for both of these teams to make runs at the top 6 this season.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It is shaping up to be quite an exciting competitive season in that kind of region, and I'm sure at some point Rangers will get their act together and start coming further up the table. Hopefully, I think that takes us nicely on to the Sunday game, the first game. The worst Old Firm I think certainly I've ever seen. Hugh Keevan said it was the worst Old Firm he'd ever seen, and he's been about for like 3 times our lifespan. So, yeah, it was a it was a derby of dross, Ethan, as you put it before recording.
Yeah, it was a terrible game of football, a terrible advert for the Scottish game when the 2 biggest clubs are producing that. And yeah, for anyone who watched the game, it was 90 minutes of football and 90 minutes of our life, so that we're not going to get back, unfortunately. And that's been the case for Celtic and Rangers fans for a lot of their recent performances. A lot of discontent for Russell Martin, a lot of discontent for the Celtic board and ownership with the transfer market, the elimination from the Champions League. So you could possibly see this coming. I think I predicted one each, and that was being generous, hoping that it wasn't going to be a dull, nothing each affair, although that was very much on the cards with Rangers and Celtic's style of play being quite poor and just really not nice to watch, both of them in recent games. And Rangers switched it up. They went a lot more direct, I think, than we've seen under Russell Martin with their set
Yeah.
pieces. Obviously, Bojan Miovski making his debut probably plays into that, but a lot of long throws into the box, and they were winning a lot of free kicks on the edge of Celtic's box. But apart from John Souttar's offside goal, there wasn't really any massive chances for either side. And yeah, I think the stat was Celtic didn't have a shot in the first half. Rangers didn't have a shot on target across the whole match. So really sums up where the game was. And I think the XG philosophy on X said it was the lowest XG match that he's ever tweeted out, which really shows how lack
I
of goal action there was in the game. And I think a draw was definitely a fair result because none of the sides carried enough quality to deserve to win that match.
Yeah.
For the clubs, I think where Celtic sit in the league, it's probably a better point for them. But for where the managers sit, Russell Martin will take it as a better point for him. Although he's not got a win yet in the league, it takes a little bit of pressure off him and buys him a little bit of time. Although Brendan Rodgers hasn't won in any of his last 4 derbies, which in the last Celtic manager to do that was Gordon Strachan. So yeah, both
Both
managers coming
managers
under slight pressure.
breaking records.
Yeah,
All the wrong ones. Yeah, but it was a terrible game, and I think it's for the international break. It's possibly a good a good stopping point for both teams to try and regroup and get themselves together. Obviously, integrate some new additions. Maybe Celtic bringing in Ian Atchell over the international break as well would be good for them. A positive, as they do need striking options. Moving on to the real derby of the day. Dundee United strolled across the road and took two goals off their rivals. Zachary Sapsford getting involved again. He seems like a good signing for Dundee United this season. This wasn't a great game either, but at least there was some goal mouth action, Ethan.
Yeah, exactly that. It was not a great game at all, and Dundee just never turned up. They created less XG than Celtic or Rangers did, so it shows how poor Dundee were. And Stephen Pressley will come under a lot of pressure again because the derbies are the big games in Dundee and, of course, in Glasgow and Edinburgh as well, or in any derby in Scotland. But after two positive results at Ibrox and Rugby Park, it's back to really square one and a lot of sort of worrying from the Dens Park faithful, and especially when they're rivals. So
I feel like everyone's opinion of Stephen Presley is on a knife's edge. It could go at any moment. I don't know. Or it's like flipping a coin. He could go up in their estimation or down. It seems like a really game to game results based sort of opinion that people have at the moment of him.
yeah, definitely. And he's not. He was sort of. The fans were sceptical about the appointment initially, and like the same at Rangers with Russell Martin. And of course, if the results aren't good, then he's going to come under a lot of pressure, and he hasn't got any credit in the bank to back up poor results and poor performances. It was an absolutely terrible performance by Dundee on Sunday, and Dundee United strolled it. They didn't have to play too great. They created a lot more than Dundee did, and got the two goals, one in each half. Zachary Sapsford with a nice finish in the first half, although I think John McCracken will need to look at himself and think he should have done better with that. Then Ivan Dolcek, the other one of the new signings who's been a goal threat, top scorer in the Premiership, unless I'm forgetting anyone. With another goal, he started really well, the winger. He got one in 77 minutes, and Dundee United seen out the game well. And I think, as we touched on in the transfer tier list, Dundee United are sitting fourth despite having European football to juggle with. Obviously, they dropped out to Rapid Vienna, no shame in that. And now Jim Goodwin can focus on really developing his new signings and getting them to fit his style of play while striving for another good season in the league and getting European football again.
Yeah, you were correct there, by the way. Ivan Dolcek is top scorer with four. Benjamin Nigren, Claudio Braga, and Emmanuel Longello, and Stuart Findlay all have three. And then there's a bunch on two and then one. I think just while we're here, I'll go over the rest of the statistics if you want, going into the international break. In terms of assists, Eli Just is top with three. Alexandros Kazridis has two. Daisa Maeda has two. And Panucci Kamara has two. And then there's a bunch on one. Uh, and Braga's top of expected goals.
Bit of distance as well.
Ivan Dolcek only has 1.5 expected goals.
Claudio Baga 3.2. Next up's Robbie Muirhead at 1.9. So
Yeah. Braga's got a one expected goal per 90 as well. Kieran Bowie's had the most shots on target per 90. Claudio Braga's had the most shots per 90, followed up by Ivan Dolcek and Kieran Bowie. Accurate passes per 90, Liam Scales with 95, followed by Cameron Carter-Vickers with 92.7 and John Suter with 83. Do you think Scales and Carter-Vickers is just them like passing it between them and then giving it to Cal McGregor and getting it back off him?
yeah, I think most of it's probably Scales to McGregor and then McGregor to Carter Vickers. I think that's been the trend we've seen across the last few games, certainly. But yeah, you expect the Celtic and Rangers central defenders to be up the top of that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, going from Dundee to the Granite City of Aberdeen. Aberdeen hosted Falkirk at Pittodrie and were defeated Kyrell Wilson with a debut goal. Nicky Devlin getting sent off in the 43rd minute. You know, I actually really meant to look at that, but I've still not seen it yet. Ethan, so if you want to take it away for a little minute, I'll do a little quick search on Twitter and see if I can find the red card.
Yeah, well, Aberdeen, I think we looked at this game that one they needed to win against the newly promoted Falkirk. Jimmy Tilleen not started the league season too well. They're obviously bottom as we mentioned before, and he needed a result yesterday or Sunday, sorry, actually. But the circumstances, the red card, it was difficult. They started the first half really well. They created a lot of chances. Then towards the end of the first half, they get a red card. Nicky Devlin, straight red card. He sort of wins the ball. He's sort of a 50-50 with Calvin Miller. He's slightly closer to the ball. He wins it fairly, but he kind of, it's one of those old-fashioned tackles where you sort of, as players get told to leave something on the opposition player, and it's just something you can't a tackle that you can't really make in today's game. And maybe 20 years ago that would have been okay, and it wouldn't have even been a yellow card. But with the regulations now, he wasn't going to get away with that, and yeah, a red card for imagine reckless and dangerous play for Nicky Devlin. So they go down to 10 men, and then the second half. Falkirk come into the game more, of course, with the man advantage, create a lot more, and then they do get their goal as you referenced to earlier. Kyrell Wilson got his debut goal with 15 minutes left, a massive win for Falkirk, their first in the Premiership in 15 years, I would imagine, since the last time they were in the Scottish Premiership. So a big win for them, picks them up. What a difficult place to go. Pittodrie's never easy, despite the run Aberdeen have been on, and picking out other sort of notable things from this game. Cassini Yenge comes off at half time again for Gavin Malloy, so possibly
I
a
think that
defensive
was a
substitution.
defensive change rather than him
Yeah,
being called off.
yeah, no, it was, um, but still, it's still coming off pretty early in the match, and yeah, I
Yeah,
think Kevin Nisbet was really needed there, and
I just
despite the pressure on, sorry, I'll just finish. I've just got one
yeah,
more thing to say. Despite the pressure on Jimmy Tilleen, um, they wouldn't have got to sign players like Jesper Karlsson if Jimmy Tilleen wasn't the manager, the Swedish link. So I think he's running a fine line at the moment, Jimmy Tilleen, but he's still got credit in the bank, obviously, from the Scottish Cup.
yeah, definitely. Just saw the challenge there. I think it is a red card just for sort of the height and the position of his foot. I think it is a wee bit unfortunate for Nicky Devlin. But you nowadays you can't go that high, even if you barely touch the guy. You know, it's a straight red, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that, and that's when I seen it, and a lot of people were complaining about it, but I think Nicky Devlin knows what he's doing, and he runs that risk when he challenges like that. And yeah, it's obviously unfortunate for him, but um, he didn't need to do that really. So I think he'll look back at that and ask himself why he done that. And Aberdeen are a terrible run at the moment. The last seven Scottish Premiership matches, they've lost all of them. So yeah,
Maybe when he's suspended, he'll use his weekend off to go to the barbers. Um, but moving on, moving on to Hibs and St Mirren, a 1-1 draw, a good result for the Buddies, a not so good for perhaps even title chasing Hibs because Celtic and Rangers are weak at the moment. Rangers the weakest, and maybe they should see an opportunity to be up there competing with their Edinburgh counterparts, their arch rivals. However, they couldn't get the win in the end. Miguel Freckleton, who has started quite well for St Mirren, getting the goal for them.
yeah, exactly that. And a lot of the Hibs dominated this match. Looking at the stats, but St Mirren come away from Easter Road with a point, and they would have taken that. And despite where they sit in the table, St Mirren down in 10th, I think they'll be happy with a lot of their performances because, as we mentioned before, the fixture list hasn't been kind to them at the start of the season, but they've got some decent points and performances from those games. As you said, with Miguel Freckleton, he's settled into that back three, stroke five really nicely.
I didn't
A bit,
realise he's only 22 as well.
oh, is he? Is he?
Yeah,
Is he permanent? Or
I
is he
think
on
no, I think
loan?
he is permanent.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it looks like he is permanent from Sheffield United. So yeah, that's a good signing.
Funny because the reason I'm so surprised that he's only 22. I don't know if I'm making this up, Ethan, but he gives you that kind of this word has kind of been co-opted over the years, but he has that kind of aura of a senior centre back, if you know what I'm saying. A,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
a calm head, a no nonsense kind of guy. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it seems like he's beyond his years.
yeah, and he's been a really good replacement for
Richard.
Richard Taylor, who obviously left this summer, and we thought it might be Richard King that came in and was the sort of replacement for him, but it's been Miguel Freckleton who's been alongside Alex Gogic and Marcus Fraser in that back three, and it was a really nice goal from Freckleton. It was a good ball in by who was it that put the free kick in? It was Declan John actually who whipped the free kick in, and there's a load of St Mirren players that on the edge of being offside. Alex Gogic, one of them, and Gogic knows he's offside. He just sort of leaves the ball, causes a bit of confusion for the Hibs defence, and Freckleton I don't think knows too much about it really. He kind of just hits off him. Really looking at it, I'm sure he had a bit of purpose behind it, but not a good finish regardless.
I think a big talking point from this game, though, is the penalty shout.
Yeah,
How the hell was this not given?
yeah, I really don't know. They obviously they get the goal back with Rocky Bashiri. 4 goals he's already got this season somehow. Although this one he pretty much put in the line. But as you said, Hibs probably should have had a penalty after they got their equaliser to win the game. I think it was Junior Hoylett who helped it towards goal from a corner, and I think it's Richard King. No, it's not Richard King. It's Jane Richardson actually that it's hand that hits off, or both hands that hits off. And it looks like his hands, although they're not too far out his body, it looks to be going goalwards if it doesn't hit his hands. So yeah, Hibs can feel really hard done by that they didn't get a penalty there. St Mirren possibly off the hook with that one. Although after last season, that they may feel they need a bit of luck because I think we spoke about how all the decisions seemed to go against St Mirren last season.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was they were the main victims of VAR incompetence. So I suppose it is the universe balancing the scales that they get a decision go in their favour. But that'll do it for this week's episode of the Dugout podcast. We hope you enjoyed our ramblings about transfers and whatnot. If you've missed any transfer news over the past few days, make sure to go check out the Twitter at the Dugout 2024 and go check out the TikToks. For the past 2 days, I have uploaded 5 videos covering almost every single transfer I could. So if you want to go and see what's happened in Scottish football, go have a look at that. It was an exciting day yesterday. I enjoyed it, but I was absolutely gubbed by the end of it. But yeah, check that out. Thank you to Ethan again, obviously coming on. And although we clash sometimes, we're good counterparts at the end of the day. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening. Make sure to subscribe. Goodbye.